Okay, officially welcome to the third lecture of Economic Geography and Sustainability. I'm happy to see you all here. And if you are watching live, thank you so much for coming. If you are watching later the recordings, thank you also for doing that. And which is important for you to start bringing together these different concepts of economic geography and how they have been merged within sustainability science, sustainability transition, sustainable development. And okay, if you have at the outset some question that you would like to make, feel free to come through voice or chat, as I said before. Then otherwise I will start sharing the screen and start the lecture. It's again a packed lecture. Hopefully we can get through it, maybe not. And then if not, then I try to compensate in different ways, or through a new short video, or through some specific advice or other publications. So let's do this. I think it will be an exciting lecture. Hopefully you find it in the same way. And I have to apologize in advance. I'm not in my best physical capacity, and I may be incapable at some point of finding the right words, or to express myself, or to explain one of the concepts. So so my apologies if this happens. So if it happens and it makes you feel uncomfortable, just please come through and share the thoughts with me. So today we talk about governance of sustainability transitions, which is one of my favorite topics of discussion within economic geography and planning, physical planning in general. The concept or the approach within different domains, from territorial organization, from planning, from geography, of governance. And here we specifically focus on sustainability transitions. You know the dynamics. We'll go through some of these concepts during the two parts of the lecture, with a 10 minutes break, and eventually we can have a third part with an open debate, or at some point in between. But the idea is to move towards the sustainability transitions, and we will only be able to touch to touch it superficially. Then if you are interested in the concept, if it's something that you would like to explore in your essay, or if you find it useful for other studies as well, then you have a number of material, mainly academic articles, at the OLAT platform, that you can make use of them. And they are certainly the most relevant you can find at this stage within sustainability transitions. And taking building this lecture from the previous one, the idea is that we have now this framework, and for us doing research, having frameworks, theoretical, that can support, for example, empirical work, are always very useful in defining, in helping to grasp specific issues. And I like to call the Sustainable Development Goals as the framework that can help policymakers, practitioners, entrepreneurs as well, researchers, to address some of these grand societal challenges. And a different number of policy documents, debates, an overall discourse, an overall play to move towards sustainable development patterns has been around for quite some time, and they all address or call or underline the urgency of addressing some of these issues. And the time to act is now, as everybody agrees that it's really fundamental to come up with some really practical solutions that can help to change behaviors of organizations, of enterprises, and of consumers overall, to at least contribute partly to address the sustainable development goals. And we went through the lecture by touching upon the key domains of evolution, economic geography, and sustainable development goals, and now they go along with each other, and how we can cross-fertilize them. Elements here to underline on evolutionary economic geography. We talk about the pluralism, that how we understand evolution economic geography is very much the result of this cooperation and a constructive collaboration across disciplines, multi and transdisciplinary, multi involving scientific domains, and transdisciplinary involving not only scientific components, but also policy making and more practical domains. And the key reference within evolution economic geography tells us that evolution economic geography is about understanding process of economic development, of economic process, organization of the economic landscape. That means production, distribution, and consumption over time. So history plays a role in understanding how this organization of the economic landscape is composed or develops its activities. And in that context, understanding the role of institutions, of actors, understanding the dynamics involving these actors and in institutions is fundamental to understand, to have a broader understanding of the economic geography of a certain territory, a region, an urban region, or a country as well. And then within the sustainable development, we touch upon mainly the nexus approach, how investing in the set of sustainable development goals can contribute to almost operationalize all the other goals. When we talk about the food, the water, food nexus relationship, and we also underline that everything requires a higher engagement of main actors that play a role in the organization of the territories, and ourselves as a consumers as well. And then it is in this context, that's the essence of these two slides here, that it is in this context that this discourse of transition, I also underline that, and I tend to underline that what we read on these slides, which they mirror the literature I shared with you on Fridays, and the others, and the other practices, is mirrors also different types of research and how research evolves. So we start talking about not only fulfilling the goals of sustainable development, but we start talking about transition from one stage of one stage of using of natural resources to a different hopefully better, more equal, more ecological balanced stage or state. So we start talking about a transition. This happens in terms of discourse, and to that end, the Sustainable Development Goals, they've been contributing, and overall they've been calling for reducing this, reducing the physical distance in terms of production and consumption. And this touch upon very much concepts core to the economic geography. For example, supply chains, bringing globalized supply chains to more regionalized context, minimizing the distance between the production and the consumption. This will certainly require a reorganization of processes. And for example, I tend to talk or to give examples about agriculture. We can go to industry as well. Instead of having the fast fashion being produced in the global south, try to relocalize it close to the consumers. But again, I mentioned also that if we do that, or if policymakers decide to go in this direction, it's important to find ways to balance what is going to happen in the countries that use it to produce those certain goods, because people depends on that, on those activities to secure sources of livelihood for themselves and their families. Other recommendations go in the direction of trying to establish a direct link with the consumer, so have some sort of going back to the tailor-made situation. This in different domains, not only regarding the garment industry or fashion, but in other contexts as well. It's important to start adding more value to local resources, and even making the consumers being happy with the local resources they have at hand. And this touch upon a new concept, or not so new, but has been now reframed, that is the concept of sufficiency. In Portuguese, I will say suficiência, which is coming from the Latin, and is important, a word that translates this being satisfied with what we already have around us. So tries to, it goes in line with this concept of post-growth, not seeking a constant performance in terms of economic indicators of growth, but being satisfied and making use of what we have at hand already. Means trying to minimize these massive patterns of consumption, and all of this requires also developing appropriate communication strategies. One of the articles I shared with you last week, it goes in the direction of valuing the local resources, and that one article I came across very recently. I found it very interesting, and that the overall idea, and if you read it, or if you read the abstract or part of it, I will underline here one of another element is to fosters, boost these bottom-up initiatives, as they call, and I cite here um, that instead of aiming for these big wins, having these overall goals that sometimes sounds very ambitious, the small wins for the grand sustainability challenge or grand societal challenges, is that sometimes they have a higher impact in bring about some change in supporting this transition, if compared to these more general, these big wins, as they call, and which tends to be very much associated with the innovation missions or innovation policies coming from different, sometimes supranational entities, such as the European Union, either from nation states, such as the US, for example. Someone wants to comment about the small wins for the Grand Challenge article? Do you have any comment you'd like to raise if you had the chance to read the article? I know that you are busy also with other courses and assignments and so on. Okay. So then, if not, just please feel free to come along and share the thoughts with us. So, and this I place this within these governance arrangements that can lead or can support this transition towards sustainability. And here is about accelerating these local solutions. And there are a number of local solutions in dealing with water management, waste management in small cities, for example, that can be scaled up, that we can capitalize, we policymakers can capitalize to then address more general issues. Another component of this transition, and very much related to some of you are studying regional development and planning. This is particularly a question of involving planning issues, is an integrated solutions to address some of these grand societal challenges. And this goes very much in the direction of the two other articles, where the social component and the technological component need to go hand in hand to really have an impact in terms of transition. What this very nicely developed article refers is that we need these integrating solutions to adapt territories, urban regions, for example, for climate change. So what it tells us tells the same than this other article I shared with you, the one that is titled Technological Transitions, a pioneer in terms of the transition thinking within sustainability. It tells that, or the author says that my analysis of technological transitions is based on a particular perspective on technology stemming from sociology of technology. In this perspective, technology of itself has no power, does nothing. It's a very strong statement. Not everybody can go ahead with such a statement and publish it in an article. So is really interesting to underline this. And then, of course, the paper goes along and justifies this position. And the integrating solution goes in line with this article from 2002, that to truly achieve or to truly address climate change in cities, we need nature-based solutions combined with technological developments, but also we need a social component. The social pillar is fundamental to support this transition. We need public awareness, we need campaigns, we need environmental education, for example. We need finding solutions in terms of transportation, merging in the neighborhoods. No, okay, I'm doing the recording. Yes, I thought of at the moment that the record was not taking place. So we need a combination of technology and social solutions to really support a transition towards more sustainable development patterns. And maybe a bit out of the context slide here, we can tell, okay, this is all certainly very nice, scaling up local solutions and integrating solutions to address these specific issues, but we still have a number of countries that are large producers of a fossil fuel, for example, and then we have to understand what they are doing, if it's business as usual, if they're trying to really also pave the way and supporting this energy transition. And I bring here the case of Norway, contested. We can be critical towards it. Norway is partly critical towards it. So one of the largest producers of natural gas in the world, for example, tries to compensate this economic activity by supporting research in terms of clean energy, for example, not only research, but also practice-oriented activities. So tries to support the operationalization of technology and how technology can be used to explore natural or renewable resources. So they deal with these trade-offs somehow differently than the way we define them in the previous lecture. So they seek a trade-off between their core economic activity, exploring fossil fuel, with the need, as they acknowledge that not all the countries in this list acknowledge that need yet of supporting the transition to clean energy. Contested, okay, as almost everything in these slides and in the literature that you have in front of you, and then you will read for your essay, is important to be critical, but always finding the right justifications and place those justifications along. So talking about sustainability transitions does not only involve economic geography, not at all. It involves environmental science, it involves governance, territorial based governance. It involves certainly a lot of expertise from researchers, from sociology, from psychology. We shall not neglect local communities as well, and all the actors playing a role within a specific geography. And any question at this moment, as we then will move now towards the sustainability transition core? Okay, so then we will continue. So feel free to bring the questions if you have them. And somehow today I'm not dealing well with this part here on the top. It's annoying me a little. Okay. So these references are those which certainly are the paths for you to grasp the meaning of these sustainability transitions, how it came to be sustainability transitions in these definitions, and is everything part of this evolution. So certainly is very, very close to the core principles of evolutionary economic geography. And so governments, NGOs, also pressure groups, so-called also lobbies, but mostly NGOs, grassroots movements as well across the globe. They start being critical towards the classic economic models, towards capitalism or neoliberalism, if you prefer, and they started making calls and players to address the way the economic landscape was. The economic landscape is organized, and the impacts on the social and ecological domains, for example. And all of this also contributed to an acceleration in terms of our policies and also the research within the sustainability. in environmental aspects, but also in terms of the organization economic landscape. That's when economic geographers, such as Kuhn, for example, start being involved in this discussion and start to explore ways of redefining patterns of production and consumption in a more sustainable manner. And they start talking about sustainability transitions. Is this a major opportunity to embrace sustainable development towards the future or not? Well, questions certainly remain, and research is currently being doing to find ways of implementing it in practice in terms of or in industry or in everyday life. And you may understand that for us to embrace the sustainability transitions, we have a role to play. I have been arguing on this regarding, but I also comment that we lack agency, if you remember. So we need governance structures. That's why sustainability transition is one domain of it is essential geographic, because it takes shape within specific territories, but it's also a question of politics. It is indeed. It is mostly that more than politics. It is a question of governance, because we need institutions, we need research and developments, we need some probably also change in terms of legislation. So it's a governance question, and that's the trying to represent this the conditions for sustainability transitions. We have to understand the governance dimensions, which also impact relates, for example, change in terms of markets, markets of energy, and understanding the companies playing a role in this context, and where are these companies located, what are the attachments with the governance structures, are there lobbies playing a role, fossil fuel related lobbies, for example, are grassroots movements from communities, from society itself, strong enough to go against these established interests. And there is a social technical dimension where the technical coexists with the social and vice versa. The social also then reacts to the evolution of the technical. So there is an equivolution of new technologies and small niche. These are the small markets, micro scale markets that are created, yeah, are developed sometimes by entrepreneurs to satisfy specific market needs: organic food, tailor-made clothing. So some uh, um, um, the cosmetics that are not, that do not use testing in animals, for example. These are niche activities that need to start being developed to truly embrace sustainability transition. So, and I think this component of niche related with innovation, with the evolution in terms of technology, is certainly fundamental, and a fundamental condition or component of this sustainability transition. And we'll try to grasp the governance component here. So within this context of this governance dimension, the emergence of the climate crisis, of the degradation of biodiversity hotspots all around the world, a number of documentaries that mirror all that degradation of the biodiversity hotspots. So they call for this new approach to governing our territories in a way that is possible to accelerate the sustainability transitions. And to do that is necessary to involve a variety of actors and a variety of domains, from the corporate sector to the society itself. And together with that, that's the geographical dimension of the governance here. Is important to understand where these sustainability transitions are taking place and why they are taking place in these specific locations. And if they succeed, trying to understand the factors that are helping them to succeed. If they are failing, trying to understand the factors that are leading them to fail. So a balance can be reached, and lessons can be learned from the most successful cases to those that are failing, and vice versa as well. So that's why this is a geographical, or we can better grasp sustainability transitions through a geographical lenses. This is somehow ourselves within economic geography and sustainability advocating also our position of embracing sustainability transitions. But then it's important to define governance. The governance can be defined in many ways, and then I invite you as I go along with the slides. If you could drop on the chat 1-2 words how you define governance, for example. This is interesting to me to understand at this stage, for example, how you define governance. If you don't mind to write, I'm opening the chat in 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, how you define governance based on your studies, on your readings. Anybody wants to start? We define governance as only the government, or more than the government, or the government and something else. There's no rights or wrongs here. Okay, we start. We start with roles of society, indeed, economy aspects, interference between different stakeholders, indeed. Any other ideas? Any other perspectives? Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Anne. A system of how regulations are implemented. Well, thank you. Indeed, all of these definitions are certainly relevant. A decision-making body that has the power to make and implement decisions. I will say that is indeed all of that. And again, you find different ways of defining it. And thank you for your contributions. And the definition I found more relevant to be placed within our model, economic geography and sustainability, is the one of territorial governance, and to some extent mirrors what you have shared just now with me. There are different definitions for governance, some of them more related with the urban governance. So those of you studying planning are certainly familiar with Neil Brenner work on this regarding regional governance, spatial governance, and then with very complex ways of making a distinction between spatial governance and the territorial governance. The territorial governance brings the geography to the governance context, and how is this territorial governance defined in Smith and Van Well, for example? Is defined as formal and informal arrangements and process of decision making. It's indeed about a decision making body that can be formal or informal composed, and that body indeed entails regulations and also entails the policy making, but also policy implementation, and for to that end, it requires the involvement of different type of stakeholders, of actors, and in an ideal scenario is about consensus building. So it's formal and informal process through which government institutions, governments, as we know them, as we vote for them, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, grassroots movements, informal groups of society, also the private sector, educational institutions, and ourselves, citizens, come together to shape ways of organizing a territory. We try to join forces, procedures, and tools as well. We bring our practices, our capacities of dealing with certain issues to help grasp or to the better good, I will say, with the ultimate goal of disrupting disrupting a system, improving the system, and ultimately transforming it towards something better, towards a better state of development. That's so. The governance definition I will take with me along the lecture is this one that composed of formal and informal, merged very well what you have shared here on the chat: rules, procedures, interests, it involves a number of stakeholders, it involves formal governance, formal institutions, and also informal institutions that take shape within a specific territory. They have their own interests, and in an ideal scenario, they come together through consensus building, through collaboration to address a common goal. This is very easy to say, very difficult to achieve in practice, as you may understand. So governance and sustainability transitions, that is makes all the dynamics suddenly much more complex, because the issues at stake are really complex, and we cannot tell that the responsibility for the current stage of the climate change is wholly from the private sector. Certainly the public actors, the component of the governments, they also have to be held accountable for the current state of the climate change. Ourselves as the citizens, we should be able to improve also our behavior in a way that minimize the impact on environmental resources as well. So a number of domains are needed to be balanced when we address or try to understand the governance of sustainability transitions, the core of the lecture. And within economic geography, we should underline that in this context, although the governance, as we define it, involves in the again this teamwork with formal and informal actors, public and private sector. It is also a reaction or situations of a protest, of contestation in the streets. They are also capable of being placed within this territorial governance. So the grassroots movements can also help to grasp this discourse, but the role of the state is fundamental in this question. And Mariana Mazzucato will come to her in our final lecture on the mission-oriented, published this book a couple of years ago, The Entrepreneurial State. The governments, the formal entities, they play a role in the currently in sustainability transitions, in technological developments and innovation processes. I will not go into detail. This is a subject I explored in evolution economic geography module, the one that requires going much more in depth into economic geography concepts. Overall, what Mariana states is that the state, the government, public entities, they play a role in the success of private investments, or through tax benefits, or through direct financial support, or through the improvement of infrastructure, of technological structures as well. Improving the internet connectivity, for example, can lead or can foster technological developments. This is what happened, for example, in California, that led to the success of Apple, for example. But while some media may communicate that current success is the result of the role of the entrepreneur, it certainly is the role of the entrepreneur, the role of some of the dynamics that's created through the economic evolution of the activity. But the United States government play a fundamental role in that success as well. And this is written on the book in the Entrepreneurial State, and they can do this support through a directly or indirectly. Directly by creating, for example, research development agencies that will have the aim, or the prime aim will be to foster technological developments. The first one here was created during the Cold War period. So a number of political tensions led to a higher investment of the United States government in accelerating research, which then led to many of the innovations that we have today in the automobile sector, transportation sector, in the telecommunication sector. The support of the entrepreneurial state, a state that seeks not only the providing public service, but also foster the private one, can also be indirectly through tax breaks, for example, through facilitating public procurement and investment again in infrastructures. And And what Mariana also underlines is that regarding Hubble is that many of the publications around the success of Hubble attributes it to this risk-taking attitude of Steve Jobs, for example, and she underlines that, well, yeah, that's certainly a fundamental aspect of it, but all the dynamics around the Silicon Valley, all the support that this territorial that this territory received from public entities is fundamental to the success of the companies that are based there, and then everything else comes in somehow in a dynamic manner. But the bases were created by the government. And then here I question why territorial governance matters when we are talking about economic geography and sustainability. I think it's a fundamental question, and these authors, they also agree with it, is that it brings together this space, the where of the things, and understanding how sustainability is taking place in Europe and compare it with North America or Southeast Asia. That is fundamental, as I said before, understanding lessons and draw positive lessons, understanding the failures where they are failing. So something better can be developed, and pay specific attention to these bottom-up initiatives, territorial specificities to tangible and intangible amenities, for example, and also the way sometimes not only it's not only about having a specific resource at hand, a tangible, but also the way decision makers come to decide. And it's certainly very interesting to see how sustainability transition will evolve in Europe and compare, for example, the Southern Europe with Nordic countries, and how we can do that through the lenses of economic indicators. So, well, they are more wealthy, so they have more resources to invest in the using of renewable resources, but can also be related with the way they make decisions. They work very well in terms of consensus building. There is a number of critics and publications criticizing the tensions that often exist in Southern Europe when it comes to decide about specific aspects. And I don't know if you are familiar. This is a topic I explore in the other model of regional geography. That is something really new. 2 weeks ago, then the president of Portugal decided to dissolve the parliament because the government with other parties, they couldn't come to an agreement to approve the budget for the next year, which is somehow very dramatic in the current situation of COVID-19 and recover of it. And if we think about all these large financial package from the European Union, we may question how is possible that the government that has a country at hands to guide through the next this crisis and eventually a further one, was not able to negotiate or to come to a consensus and approve the budget. And then these kind of things do not happen in other contexts. So how they come to decide to accelerate the use of renewable resources or not is also fundamental to understand these dynamics of sustainability transitions across the globe. Certainly, place-based decisions, place-based policies are fundamental. What are these place-based? Are these policies that enhance the local level? They are tailored to the specific context. So the idea is not to have a one size fitting all of the European Union. It sounds like that well, they have this overall package, but then they work very well with place-based policies. Then they try to through calls for projects, they try to invest in the specific needs of the member states. That's why understanding these sustainability transitions is important in a context, in a geographical context. But this does not go along without complexities. If we, for example, start talking about these more abstract regionalities, that in regional geography we study physical territories where they have well-defined boundaries and well-defined regions where countries are integrated. But We also talk about abstract regions, and if we, for example, talk about the mega region of along the Danube region, the complexity of addressing sustainability in such a context is, as you may understand, is certainly the challenges are certainly very, very big. It involves different countries; they have different approach towards even democracy. They have different approach towards the public involvement. Again, they deal differently with the decision making. They come to decisions through different means. Some of them consensus, some other negotiation, others a lot of tensions in between. So it's very difficult to to have a common understanding of sustainability transitions without having the geography at the background, I will say. So that's why it's interesting in my point of view, and maybe others agree, to explore sustainability through the lenses of geography. And also in this context, there are things that are done differently in different territories. There are institutional barriers, and sometimes these institutional barriers, they hinder the capacity of scaling up these bottom-up solutions that one of these articles is calling upon. And another component that I will then come back to you after the break, as we are reaching the first part of the lecture, is about this evolving towards a sustainability pattern in one territory can also result in more pressure in another territory, and this involves very much ourselves as a consumers. I will come back to this after 10 minutes break, and I will see you soon.
Well, I saw it the whole time. Maybe it was just for some people.
Okay.
Only the last one that I didn't see. The other way, it was all clear.
Did you see this one?
No, at least me not.
So I saw some technical issue here, or was my screen that froze? So I've been talking without the slides. Okay. Anyway, then I will. Okay, I know what to do. I will then. I will recap the lecture. I will recap the lecture from the defining transitions, and now because of for time wise, then I will continue with the debate on the discussion economic geography and the sustainability transitions. And now just let me. Sometimes I get surprises here. This is working all right. It feels, yes. Okay, when we bring the economic geography, the focus of economic geography within sustainability transition is about again innovation, the spatial organization of these of the technologies, understanding a process of change and different social practices within industry, for example, and also finding something I also like, but we don't have much time to explore. We'll be able to explore the circular economy later on. Is this finding alternative business models, and fortunately there are a number of cases coming along within the garment industry. We have the case of Patagonia company, for example, exploring alternative business models that try to counteract established neoliberal business models to go more in line with the sustainability and the more sustainable ways of production and consumption. So in this context, understanding the space and what the space offers is again fundamental. The geographical component is important in this context, and most of the research, they go in line with this exploration of new business models and others, but also about understanding what these places can offer to support this transition to sustainability. And okay, and then this sense we land on the social technical systems, and you may say finally something about that. And you mentioning then when you share your thoughts about the governance, it involves stakeholders and the way they come to decide about certain elements within the organization of the society. So the multi-level perspective, which is a core concept within economic geography literature and the socio-technical systems are two of the core concepts currently being more explored within economic geography. You were not able to see this slide, I believe, where I touch upon another other concept of evolution economic geography that has been explored quite intensively within sustainability transition, that is path development, the path creation, the green entrepreneurship. Again, I hear a number of references in this regarding. If you are interested in this concept, you can come to me. I will reach out to you with certainly a number of other references, urban experimentation. So now you have the visual dimension of what I was talking about. So this social technical dimension, that the body of literature supporting this argumentation on the social technical is actually quite strong. You may think that I was only trying to explain or bringing together the social and the technical. No, there are a number of references, and some of them really quite old in this regarding, but still being used in more recent papers. This framework of the social technical components, where they tell that technology per se will not be able to support the sustainability transition without the involvement of the society. That's the sense of the social technical dimension of sustainability transition. I could close the lecture in this context because I will feel comfortable that I share the core of the framework. Of course, you go through the literature, you will see a lot of discussions in this regarding, and how they came to build this framework, and they bring together theories of a transformation from sociology and technological evolutions. They bring the transition studies from management as well. So supporting a sustainability transition requires understanding of all of these relationships between social systems and technical systems. Partly of these technical systems are led by policies. Policies are responsible for these dynamics within technological investments. And it's important also to look at change in terms of practice, change in terms of behavior, new institutional arrangements as well. So a number of components that is important to pay specific attention. Here, an example of the transportation sector. If we explore when we are exploring the transportation sector, if you think of it through the lenses of this framework of the social technical components, then we have to pay attention to what supports this transportation. The fuel infrastructure is fundamental, and that for us to have access to such an infrastructure, we need decisions need to be taken in this regarding to locate these infrastructures where they are located. The market calls for the development, calls for different type of vehicles as well. Cultural behaviors, some societies are more car friendly than others. Also, the territory itself helps to shape the way certain activities such as transportation are also developed. It requires maintenance and infrastructure. So a number of both social, and here the social entails cultural aspects, political dimensions, and the technical one. Not only the technical is fundamental when we are talking about accelerating this transformation. The important aspect here, I underlined it before, is the long-term thinking. Certainly, local solutions are important. Short-term actions are important. There are also some research in this regarding, but it's important to do it with this to last long, so the transformation can be sustained per se itself, and not only address or respond to a trend, to a global play. Otherwise, we will probably enter the same process of business as usual, and we certainly will not afford that in the short term. So a call for sustainability transitions involves thinking, long-term thinking involves strategic thinking in different directions. So from social technical systems, the discourse within research start evolving towards the social technical transitions. So there's always this evolution again. And then from the social technical framework, the one very simplified you saw earlier on, I hope, yeah, I think so. And then the discourse evolves towards this more complex scheme by Frank Gills, the multi-level perspective. So the idea is that the society per se is becoming more complex. A number of rules, a number of arrangements, agency is becoming more complex. So then it's important to disentangle this process through the lenses of what is really impacting all of this evolution. So there's a number of these practices that they exist because a number of actors and perspectives take shape or act in this specific context. Trying to see to explain it through again the social technical configuration of the transportation. And so from the simplified model of social technical, then we evolve towards the multi-level perspective of the social technical transitions, mean that together with those elements I pointed out before, the infrastructure, the vehicle, the fuel structure, the cultural elements, a number of them start playing also a fundamental role. The financing components, then not only in support its development, but also supporting its operationalization. Insurance came along, a number of regulations supporting it. So the argumentation here is the way that we this, for example, the private use of vehicles start being used within the society. A number of regulations led to that. A number of efforts led to that. So now we talk about moving towards green transportation. Such a system of having this multi-level perspective, bringing together different elements and investing in the co-evolution. So the evolution in terms of fuel infrastructure, the way they were able to bring fuel close to the citizens, having them located in our cities, certainly foster the usage of the vehicle. So now we translate this to the sustainability transition. So we need such a multi-level perspective to truly accelerate these transitions. That's the essence of exploring sustainability transitions through the lenses of a multi-level perspective. This is rather complex, I will acknowledge, and requires a deep understanding of the multi-level perspective, which my role here is also to try to put it simple. And the way I can do that is that this is regarding a specific evolution of the automobile for private use, personal transportation. A number of activities co-evolved along the development in the technology component of the vehicle, all of this here in this down part, but a number of other elements, they help to fuel the usage of the personal of the personal transportation. So then this type of philosophical principle and framework then needs to be imported to the sustainability. And this is about exploring small ideas, the niche, finding the gaps, try to accelerate it. And the overall lesson of today is that nothing can be achieved without or being placed outside of the governance dimension. And then now, if you want, within a multi-level perspective. A number of authors, but there are only very few good articles, I would say, that really put this straightforward. There are a number of theoretical discussions and heavy theoretical discussions as well. Very few articles are capable of pointing out failure and then finding solutions. And this is a good one, in my point of view, that tries to do that in different domains. So the authors tell that point out here the challenge of implementing green spaces in our cities, for example. They tell us there are a number of challenges into implementing green strategies or developing green infrastructures, and they point out a number of solutions. They focus on improving the quality of the existing green spaces, so capitalizing local resources, capitalizing local solutions, instead of aiming big of, okay, now let's now build here a completely new green infrastructure, a green park that will really attract new residents to our city. No, it's about the enhancing value, which the spaces already that already exist, instead of creating new ones. Is also about creating incentive for changes to occur in the private land. Perhaps that is there are a number of private parcels within the cities that can be used, for example, for recreational purpose. It's important to find the necessary mechanisms to reuse them in benefit of the overall society. Again, this is certainly easy to write and easier for me to tell you this research conducted by others, and it's certainly very challenging to do that in the context of our municipalities. And again, we need to embrace this multi-level perspective and understanding the issues within this territorial governance dimension. Why? Then because there are different speeds of evolution. There's inequality within the process, and some of the municipalities, for example, in Europe, they have a strong decision-making capacity, for example, in the Netherlands, also in Germany, the Nordic countries, but they lack this capacity in the southern part of Europe. Municipalities, they do not have the resources, and sometimes not even the political capacity to decide on converting private land for green infrastructures, for example. So a number of domains are still needed to be grasped to truly accelerate the sustainability. And they also try to provoke or propose a number of measures to compensate for the lack of financial resources. This is one of the good publications coming up with interesting solutions that to address some of the barriers hindering a sustainability transition. So I always find very interesting that is playing with this between the global and the local, and then taking the local to try to address some global issues, and eventually take the global issues and bring it to the local context as well. It's not always an easy or an easy exercise, to do, but overall message of the slide and of these last slides is to accelerate these local solutions. And some of these articles, they are specific on what type of a small process they want to accelerate. It's about water management or waste management, for example. But the accelerating local solutions is not only a thing coming from these more recent publications. Also, in the past, the way this technological niche, this novelty, this discovery, this idea came to the application can be considered as this accelerating the local solutions. And along the way that we have these small ideas, that it can be, this can be you, this can be me, with our own ideas. Maybe I point out here, maybe your essay, maybe we have an idea can eventually lead to a niche in terms of finding a not necessarily finding a need, but filling the gap of a specific need for some kind of activity in our day-to-day life. And then how to get to the application, how to influence the overall landscape. That's the key question. That's the question that involves governance, involves rules of the society, as you rightly said earlier on the chat. It involves governance configurations. Indeed, this supply chain law in Germany and maybe further on in the European Union can foster, can accelerate some of these ideas, some of these bottom-up initiatives that can then be used more in the global interest. But then, as the framework translates, it's necessary to go through a level of institutional arrangements of decision making, of rules, of practices, of informal customs as well. It depends very much on the geographical context where this niche, this novelty, this idea is coming up. So a lot of forces here playing a role, and the multi-level perspective precisely intends to address the complexity of these elements, where research plays a role, financial markets play a role, the suppliers play a role, users, the society in general. Then these within the context of economic activities, for example, production, they all contribute and play a role. So this is a very a network of relations influencing the process of economic processes. Here, a nice diagram, and in one diagram you can tell a lot of things of this, how from an idea we can truly address the sustainability. And some of these more recent publications, I try to use this multi-level perspective to understand how new paths are created within specific regions, how Nordic countries are embracing renewable energies in shipbuilding. So they are using an idea, they are using not an idea, a common activity, a traditional activity, and they try to implement technology to reshape that traditional industry into more sustainable patterns. So the diagram explains this dynamic, how to go from the idea, the niche innovation, towards its acceleration and possible stabilization, and entering a more consolidated position in the market. So and this implies talking about concepts such as windows of opportunity. So take advantage of what is out there. Sometimes these windows of opportunity can be founding schemes to accelerate urban gardening, to accelerate the use of a bicycle in a specific community. Can also be about using more I will say the examples of ways of dealing with water treatment in one industrial cluster, for example. So a number of funding schemes that are created specifically to address one of the issues, minimizing the impact of mining explorations, for example. This also leads sometimes to some breakthrough. So really go against the system and find ways how this idea can replace everything else that exists that's out there. It's an interesting diagram, and we could probably spend one entire lecture disentangle it. And transitions in this how we define them, they are also the result of these efforts we talked about last week, the United Nations Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, all of these international agreements, all these discussions, and sometimes only conferences or round tables have been supporting or fueling, fostering, boosting this discourse on sustainability transitions. And then if you ask examples about this applicability of the multi-level perspective, that framework I presented to you earlier, there are a number of examples in the literature in terms of some kind of hygiene transformation in wastewater disposal in the Netherlands. There are other examples, so that Frank Giltz used from the past to exemplify this multi-level perspective. In the US, for example, again, the use of renewable energy in the Netherlands, here an analysis where they also use the multi-level perspective. And again, in the context of geography of sustainability transitions, is interesting to see that how this multi-level perspective then plays at the geographical level, and where these niches are taking place and why they are taking place, where they are taking place, and try to understand if this is only the role of the entrepreneur, again, the role of the state, the role of a founding mechanism? Are there any windows of opportunity that, for example, do not exist in in Latin America, or do not exist in Southern Europe, but exist in the Nordic countries? It's important to understand the factors, the conditions, and that support these sustainability transitions. And again, it's a couple of a lot of good references here in terms of examples if you are in need of finding examples, and most of them, they again related to energy transition. They touch upon the climate change experimentations and how to address it. They involve a lot of water management, waste management, how to deal with it. And some of the discussions, they also go in the direction of valuing the local to address the global, and then again using this global discourse to come back to address the local in a way that can provide to the local communities. That's again why then we talk about the governance of sustainability transitions, and the importance of looking at it through the lenses of different territorial scales, and understanding if coordination coexists involving different territories. Because one of the arguments here or critical arguments or within sustainability transitions is this, how the things are done differently in border territories, for example, how some countries are doing, without giving here specific examples, specific examples, how some countries are behaving well in terms of energy transition, for example, but what's the benefit, the global benefit, if the neighborhood country is still investing largely on nuclear reactors, or in intensifying mining activities, for example. And the same can be translated on how we can really flag sustainability transitions in advanced societies of the North, while we have dramatic problems within the geography of the global South, in less developed countries that are still relying heavily on mining activities, and where child labor, for example, still occur very dramatically. So it's important for us geographers to pay attention not only to the positive aspects in these sustainability transitions. It's fundamental to evolve towards, or to stop the environmental degradation and counteract the negative effects of climate change, but think about the negative impacts of these unevenness as well. And the multi-level perspective here is useful to understand where the things are succeeding and failing again. And here is an example of a technological development used to treat water. And again, most of the examples are in this direction. And for you to see that a simple technological development that is about the membrane bioreactor technology, you can read about it in this publication, involve a number of resource institutions, and research institutions located in different parts of the world, and they through their own means, with or without a solid, a consolidated governance structure, they were contributing to each other to develop this membrane that is capable of dissolving materials and then producing or helping to produce clean water. So even countries, not pointing out again here anyone specific, even countries less common within this research and development have contributed to the development of this technology. Yeah, there's the summary, and then I will then recap and then I go to the summary, and then I'll recap the one before. So today we talk about the governance of sustainability transitions, and the background here is precisely how most of the research within this domain positions the governance as a background. We talk about the socio-technical system. Technology per se, without the support of society, will not be able to to grasp or to shift or to move to one regime to another, then the multi-level perspective came to be a more solid framework to analyze the evolution of the sustainability transitions and how it is important to look at this goal, this player of sustainability transitions from a geographical point of view, because it's important to understand why it's taking place in this specific territory, the conditions involving it, and the directions that are or that are taken and by whom these directions are being taken. So we are reaching the limit of the lecture, and I want to respect that, but I'm still open for some debate in this regarding. I acknowledge again this has probably been a massive lecture, and again the idea is for you to grasp some of the concepts and help you to pick one or another for your essay. Now we are at the midpoint of the module. Hopefully you are already developing your own ideas. Questions? So something is are too much? Are you too much concerned about the lectures or the concepts? Are something is bothering you, or just feel free to tell. I'm really on your side here. And if something you would like me to improve, please also come along. I'm very open also to evolve.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you. That was I just shot in. Definitely a lot of information and very interesting, all of it. I'm wondering regarding the essay if we are supposed to pick one of those concepts as basis, so to say. Like I have an idea in mind what I want to write about, but I don't have the economic geography background. So I wonder if there's any requirements for the literature review or something like that you want to see.
No, that economic geography is really a vast field, and that's an interesting question, definitely. And thank you for bringing it. It is a vast field. There are many concepts, and I will not be able to bring them all to the lectures. I said earlier than last. This is my second time. This is the second time I'm giving this module, and actually maybe the last, because I probably will change institution next year. So a number of your colleagues, they came with different concepts. Some of them, okay, I could say, okay, there's some economic geography there, and it's important that you touch upon economic aspects. That is important. But you are free to explore also other concepts and even surprise me in your assessment. It is important to build a coherent story, a nice narrative where we can all grasp, because then you will present it in the collective presentation. It's important that we grasp that, okay, you found one gap or one issue, and then you develop you take one concept and maybe one framework, and I will get to that, and then you try to develop the story that can understand how this helps sustainability, how this helps not necessarily sustainability transitions, not at all, how this can help to address this social, ecological, economic issue in this specific territorial context, but not necessarily, can also be more conceptual. And I think probably we'll all be doing some kind of literature review. The advice here is about is important you come with a background, or in terms of concept and ideal one framework. This framework will help you to develop your idea in a more cohesive manner. And sometimes it's not easy to find this framework within the literature, but sometimes you have to combine two concepts, and I recommend only one, so you can narrow the idea down and develop it forward. You don't need to explore multi-level perspective. Is useful, but you don't have to. You can explore. You can bring other concepts as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And the advices come to me come to me as soon as you have some idea, and I can and as a sometimes the way I react better is having some time to read your email, take it with me for a walk here and there, drink a coffee, and then I reply more constructive than replying now. I have been teaching since 11:30, so I'm already a bit exhausted of the day, so I will not be able to tell you extraordinary things at this stage. But then sitting down, I will be able to help you with and guide you with the topic.
Okay.
Good. Okay, then next week we talk about these ingredients for sustainability transition, and we will carry on with a short lecture on interesting, I think, slow innovation and circular economy. All right, everything from your side? Yep. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and I wish you a good rest of the day and good rest of the week as well. And you know, I'm here. Feel free to drop an email and use the group as well. And hopefully you are still happy with the module, and I will see you all next week. Thank you also for watching this later at home.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.